so excited to be here. I was actually here this morning at MOPS. So I come to the morning gig. I have 2 young girls, so it's cool to be able to kind of get away during the day. And my husband's on staff here, so Colston Copeland, he is the campus pastor over on Groseal. So that's where we live. And we love it. I grew up over in Riverview, are there any downriver girls here? Yes, awesome. Okay, so I grew up in Riverview, which is just a city over from Groseal, but Groseal from here is like an hour away-ish. It is an island. I was talking to somebody earlier this morning that they didn't even know there was an island near here, so it was kind of cool. But I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. I just want you to know. And Cheryl asked me, man, it was so cool. I'm excited to share my story, and I've just kind of been praying over this specific topic. I want to kind of dive into my testimony a little bit, but ultimately, I want the weakness that I have, that the story that I have that really displayed my weakness. I want you to see how God totally transforms that, and that He can use any story and bring Himself glory. And so that's what it's all about tonight. But a little bit more about me. So again, my husband's on staff here. We're very involved here, and we love it. We got married at a really young age. So I was like 20, almost 21 when we got married. And we got home from our honeymoon, and we literally packed up the U-Haul and drove out to California. So he did youth ministry. We did youth ministry together for about 5 years in Southern California, where it's really warm. It's nice. But my family's here, so it was really nice to be able to come back. We never dreamed of actually coming home, which was really such a blessing for us, especially having kids. For any of you guys who have family here, it's huge. It's a huge deal. So we've just been really busy here. My family is all around, and so we love it. We lived in Texas for a couple of years as well. And then we made it back here. So I have 2 girls. I have a picture. There they are. So I've got Hadley, who is 4 and a half, and I have Willow Grace, who is almost 2. So life is really busy. I have one who's high energy and kind of scared a lot. And then I've got one who's real reserved, who fears nothing. And so it's kind of scary, but it's just busy. But it's a lot of fun, and man, I don't know, I could go on about that, I guess, all night. But so I want to kind of first dive into my story a little bit. I want to encourage you. The topic tonight is hungry, which I know you guys are probably like, oh, okay, I hear that word like 630 times a day, and I'm kind of tired of that word. I'm hungry, Mom. But I'm hoping that tonight, when we talk about this topic of hungry, that you can actually leave here feeling a little bit relieved. I really have been praying over you specifically that when you think about the word hungry, that you are reminded specifically of how God redeems us and how He can take, again, like I said, our weaknesses and just totally transform our lives. And so that's kind of where I want to go tonight. But so when I say the word hungry, what I mean in that is really just this idea that as women and as moms, that we are hungry for acceptance and validation. So Cheryl had originally asked me to talk on body image, which I will because it's a part of my story, but overall, when you hear the word hungry, I'm going to be talking and referring to the idea of validation and how we need it, how we long for it, how we really are hungry for it in our lives. And so I want to tell you my story, which really starts back when I was about 14, and I was kind of just this, I'm 5'11", but at that time I was real tall and just kind of awkward. And I remember my mom had a friend who was a model back in the 80s. She traveled the world, she was real successful, and I went to school with her son. And so she had talked to my mom at one day and was like, I really think you should get Emily into modeling. And so my mom and I were like, she sure? I had like big, huge glasses, like just real awkward, like in that awkward phase. And so, so we were like, okay, well, we'll try. She's like, don't do any of the like scouting competitions. Don't do any of that. Just call the agency. That's all you need to do. So we were like, all right. So we called the agency, and I remember they were like, okay, well, you're 14. We really we don't sign any girls until they're 15. And so we're like, okay, so for a year, we spend the whole year sending pictures back and forth to this agency. And we, they said, well, we really are interested in all of this. And so after I turned 15, then they invited us, so myself, my mom, my sister, my dad, we got in the car and we drove to Chicago, because that's where this specific agency was located. It's called Elite Model Management. And at the time, it was actually in the top 3 agencies in the world. And so it was a big deal. And we got there and had conversations with them. And by the end of our time together, they said, okay, well, we're ready to sign. Like, we've got a contract. Mom and Dad, you kind of put in the contract what you want her to do, what you don't want her to do. But we're just going to have you sign on the dotted line. And it was like, okay, all right, real surreal. I mean, at 15 years old, to do something that along those lines was surreal. And so I'll never forget it too. After we signed, we went down the street and we went to McDonald's, and we had lunch at McDonald's. And I'm pretty sure it's the last time I ever actually ate McDonald's. But I had a Big Mac and a large Coke and fry, and I ate every bite of it. And then I was having a conversation with my mom, because when we were at the agency, they had told us that there's a guy named Bruce Weber who is a really famous photographer, and he does all of the shoots for like Abercrombie and Fitch and Hollister, and like at the time as a 15-year-old girl in like 2002 or 2001, whenever that was. It was a big deal. Like I wanted to wear Abercrombie so bad. It was like everybody was wearing it. It's like the coolest thing, And so I remember they had mentioned that, and we were like, can you imagine? Like, can you imagine if they called us? And 2 weeks later, I get this phone call. The agent had called my mom and said, are you available in a few weeks? And my mom's like, I think so. Or is she available? And my mom's like, yeah, I think we got that. And they're like, okay, well, Bruce called, and he wants Emily to be in the shoot. He wants to fly her out to Santa Barbara, California, and they want to do a shoot for Abercrombie Kids. And so sure enough, within a few weeks, we were in Santa Barbara, California. Again, a little surreal. As a 15-year-old, I'm like, this is so crazy. But it was cool. And we did the shoot, and within probably 2 or 3 months, I get a call from a friend, and she's like, I'm at the mall, and I'm staring at your face. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm at the mall, I'm staring at your face. And I was like, I'm not catching, what are you saying? She's like, I'm looking into Abercrombie Kids and I'm seeing your face. And I was like, what? Are you kidding? Because the thing about it is they don't tell you, like the agency doesn't tell you, they're putting your picture up. Like you just kind of have to find out, or friends call you and they tell you you're on the wall. And so that's kind of what we called the store, because I didn't believe my friend at the time. So we called the store and we're like, is there a girl on the wall? And she has long hair. And they're like, yeah. She's kind of brushing the hair out of her face. And so by the time, so I think it was 12 Oaks. I think we had gone to the store in 12 Oaks. But because we had called, it gave them time to call like people from other regions, like the other managers and stuff from the other stores. And so here they come. So I'm walking in and they've got the line of people who were like, we're here to take a picture with you. And I'm like, what? This is so weird. This is so strange. So it was a really surreal moment, and I'll just never forget, in that moment there was so much validation in that for me. As a girl, as a young girl, and wow, I'd done this thing, and now I'm there, and like people wanted to see me, and I was like, talk about validation and acceptance. I got a taste for it, and I got hungry. I got hungry for validation because I saw it felt good. It felt good for people to want you, to want to see you, to want to meet you, and so as time went on, I kept working. I traveled a lot. I missed a lot of high school. I did a lot of catalog work, and with every job came a little bit more validation, and with every job I felt a little more accepted and wanted, and it's just it's a good feeling. With that validation, what I didn't realize as I was kind of going further and further into this modeling career that I had started, the truth that I didn't realize at the time that now I know, and God has totally opened my eyes up to is this, and it's the idea and the truth that when we as women, when we start taking on the value of the world, and when we say, okay, yeah, they say if I'll do this, like if I take this job, if I'm working as a model, man, I'm gonna have validation. And if I do this, if I just work a little harder, if I just get another job, if I take it to the next level, then there's more validation. And the world is always telling us that we just gotta do a little more, and we gotta do a little more. And so when we as women, when we take on the idea of the world's validation and acceptance, we develop a hunger. And that's what I was experiencing as a young girl, as I was experiencing this hunger for validation. I was like, man, that feels good. That feels real good. And it was a neat opportunity, but I just didn't realize at the time what that was doing for me as a young girl. So it's a truth that I now know, but I didn't at the time. And I went on to, like I said, just continued working catalog work. I did Kohl's and all kinds of Claire's, just all kinds of wedding stuff. And even at that time too, I remember I got another call and they said, hey, so we're actually putting you into this, like, it's called the Elite Model Look Competition. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And so they said, well, what we're doing is we've chosen you. There's been like 200 or 300,000 girls who've tried out for this, and there's only about 30 who make it. They've been trying out all over the country, but we're actually picking you from the agency to just go and compete. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what any of it meant. But I went to Miami and I competed against 30 other girls who'd been chosen kind of all over the United States. And so we were in Miami, and like there were celebrities there. I mean, it was just like, again, very surreal. And out of the 30, I was one of the 3 chosen to go on. And what that meant was that I would go to Singapore. They flew me to Singapore with my family to compete against 60 other girls from all over the world for a $250,000 contract as a 15-year-old girl. So again, more validation. Wow, like not very many 15-year-old girls get to do that kind of thing, you know? So I felt better, and I knew I needed to work hard, because around this time is when, as a lot of us know, your body begins to change a little bit as you grow, you know, between 15, 16, 17. That really awkward, lanky, skinny, bony girl that they had found when I was 14 is now, I'm filling out a little bit. I'm becoming a woman, you know, I'm kind of filling out my shape, whatever. And so I knew that I personally had to work a little bit harder than the other girls. There were girls who, you know, those girls, like the girls who just kept it together, they could eat whatever they wanted, and that just wasn't the case for me all the time. So I remember that this is when a time I became really aware of my body. And one of the reasons I became very aware of my body was because, as a part of just protocol, I guess, they would have me come into the agency whenever I was in town, which was quite often, and they would have me put on my bathing suit and stand in front of several agents, and this is what all the girls had to do, but they would stand there and they would say, okay, you're gonna have to fix that. What is that? We need to fix that. We need to tone here, we need to lose here. And so for a few years, that's what my standards were, okay, what are they gonna tell me when I put on my bathing suit? So I began having really difficult, a difficult time, and I knew, well, this is who I am, and this is what I do, so I'm just gonna work hard and do what I need to do to get there, because I felt so validated, and I felt so accepted anytime I would book a job, or when I would win a contest to go to Singapore, which I did not win, by the way, which was a good thing, but I will remember this, that when I was there, that the agents, after the contest was over, I had just been to volleyball camp the week before flying to Singapore, and I remember the agent said, you know, we talked to the judges, you were close, but there's a little bit too much muscle in your legs, is what they told me. You've built a little bit too much muscle in your legs, so they had to count you out. I'm like, oh, I can't do much about that. I'm sorry, there's not much I can do. Or Pilates, that's always what they told me, Pilates. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can't do enough Pilates for you. But, so anyway, so that was when I began really struggling with the image, what they needed me to be was just not what I was at that time. So I had to work harder for validation, but man, I was hungry. I was so hungry for validation and acceptance. I just wanted to be what they needed me to be, and their standard was my standard, right? So as time went on too, I was in town, I was kind of known as the model. I'll never forget, there were girls who would come up to me and say, man, I wish I could be you. I wish I could do what you do. And I'm like, I haven't eaten all week, so I don't know if you want that. But okay, thanks. And a couple weeks ago, I had a guy approach me. I was with my 2 girls out at like Funtastic, which is a big indoor thing, and he said, are you the model? And I was like, okay, I'm about to be 30, and that was then, and yes, but it's like, yeah, we had friends who, like, my friend knew you, but you didn't know her, she just knew you, and we were from other schools, and I was like, okay, cool, that's cool. So again, this label that I had on me, people knew me as this, because I was gone from school so much, so they knew me, that was validation for me, that people knew me as this model, and that was kind of my identity. But here's what I didn't realize. At the time, what I didn't realize was that the world was feeding me what I now like to refer to as empty calories, which I love me some empty calories as far as like ice cream and all that good stuff. I'm a sweets girl, so yeah, I'm a sweets girl too. And so I like to refer to it as empty calories because of the fact that the world was saying, if you can do this, if you can just get here, if you'll work a little bit harder, there's validation for you there. And so I loved it, and I was like, okay, I can do that. It feels good. When you get there, it feels good. But I was being fed, and I was fueling my body on empty calories of the world, what the world wanted me, those expectations, so that I could feel validated. And I know the story's a little far out there. It's still surreal to me, the experience that I got, but I will tell you that I struggle with this issue now too. I struggle with it as a mom, of being hungry for validation from other moms, being hungry for validation from everybody. I want my house to be clean. I want my house to be like Joanna Gaines came in and did it all, and I didn't do anything. It was easy. That's what I want, I want my kids to be so well behaved that people think well of me, that it validates me that my kids are so well behaved. That's what I want. There's still that hunger for it. At that time, obviously, it was a different type of hunger. It was a different appetite that I had for validation as a model, as a young model. But I want to tell you this. This was a pivotal moment for me where I began realizing that the world that I was caught up in, the validation that I was searching so hard for, wasn't, I don't know how to say it, it wasn't very legit. And here's why. I'll tell you why. Because I remember having a conversation because I was so frustrated. I couldn't keep my weight down to the weight that they needed me to be. I just couldn't. I was fighting. When I lived in Chicago to work for a summer, I remember the days that I wasn't working, I would sleep and lay in bed all day so I couldn't eat. That was my goal was like, okay, I just got to get through another day, make sure I don't eat anything, and I'll be good to go for tomorrow, for a job. And so I struggled. And the agents knew it. They knew it because they could see it, and I was miserable, as when you just don't eat, you're kind of miserable. My husband just did the whole 30, and I know misery when I see it. But they sat me down and they said, we know you're struggling, what's going on? And I said, I'm hungry and I'm tired and I don't know that I can keep this up. And the pivotal moment came when they said, we have something else to offer you if you want to hear about it. And I said, sure. And they said, we think that if you want to gain some weight, then we would love to consider you for the plus size division. I said, okay, well, what does that look like? And they told me, they said, if you'll gain a few pounds and get to a size 8, we will put you in the plus size division. And I looked at my mom and I said, but I'm like a 4'6". That's not very far from where I'm at. And I told my mom, I said, I don't think I'm the problem here. I don't think I'm the problem. I think that's a problem. That's the standard. That's what they're going by. Okay, that's a problem. That's not right. And so that was a big pivotal moment for me when I finally started realizing that the world standards, the world standards where I was trying so hard to be validated according to what they were telling me was going to give me just so much satisfaction and fulfillment that something wasn't right. And I wasn't the problem, right? So the truth that I realized too is we'll never be satisfied. I was never satisfied. Even in traveling the world, even in doing these big things that girls my age were like, wow, tell me more about that. And I was doing it, and it was so cool, and there was so much validation. But the problem was that I was fighting for the validation in a world where I would never be satisfied, because I would get so close. And then it was like, okay, but take another step. Keep going, keep going. You're not enough, not yet, not yet. You're almost there, you're close. Problem is when you think you hit it, they move the line. And the line moves, and then you're like, oh, well, I thought I'm here, I'm so tired, I have to keep going. You know, and so for me, at one point, I remember I was dating a guy in high school, and I was in love with this guy. And we broke up, and I was devastated. And I just kind of stopped eating, because I was so sad that, you know, this guy, we broke up and whatnot. And I remember walking into the agency, and sick as, I mean, really, it was sad. I mean, what a sad situation. And I have pictures from that time, and it was just not, I mean, parents were worried. They're like, what's going on with her? And my parents were like, she broke up with this guy, and she's, you know. But I walked into the agency, and they were like, you did it, you did it. And I was like, I'm so hungry. You know, and they're like, you did it, let's talk about New York, which New York meant that when you go there, that's the high fashion, that's the runway, that's the editorial, that's like, you've made it, right? When you get to go to New York, you've made it. And so they're like, we're getting on the phone with them today, we're gonna send you, let's do this. And so it's like, all right, if you think that's where I need to go, I'll go. And so they get off the phone, they'd sent pictures, whatnot. And then I get a call back, and they said, okay, well, they'd love to have you, but we just want you to know and understand that you're a little bit more commercial looking than editorial, and so you may not book quite as much as, you know, some of the other girls, because by commercial it just means more all-American looking. You're just not quite edgy enough. I mean, your body's right, but your face is not really what they're looking for. And so I'm like, I mean, there goes the line. I'm like, there's the line, and I'll never get there. And it was just like this ongoing thing where I was never enough. Even though I had felt, it may have seemed like, wow, she made it. She did something cool. She's working. She's doing all this. It was a constant, it was such a battle, and I was never fulfilled. It was so different than what you would expect, because there was a high expectation. The line was always moving. I was never enough. I was so tired. And what I didn't realize then was that it was my hunger that was making me tired. And with that kind of hunger, when we as women are hungry for validation and acceptance, we have one of two appetites at all times. Every day we wake up with one of two appetites. And there are two things that fulfill that. Either approval, where we're hungry for approval and validation, like I was for years, and still can be. But there's also the appetite of surrender. And that's what I didn't know at the time, was that there was another way. That I didn't have to live this life where I was constantly chasing validation, but that I could truly live a life of surrender and a life that was fulfilling. And the truth about those two appetites is that you're always feeding one or the other. You can't feed both at the same time. So you can't feed the appetite of approval and validation, where you're seeking out and doing anything you can to get there, and surrender it all and lay it at God's feet at the same time. It's impossible. And my husband, being in ministry, you guys may have heard this story too, about the guy with the two dogs, a black dog and a white dog. And he would let his dogs out in the yard, and they would fight every single day. They would fight, and the neighbor finally came over at one point. He said, man, I see these dogs fighting out in the backyard. Like, who wins? I mean, you just let them fight. Is there one that's stronger? Is there one that wins? And he just says, the one that I feed the most is the one that wins. Every time. Every time. He's stronger, and he just has the advantage, so he wins every time, the one that I feed the most. And it reminds me so much of these two appetites that we feed daily. We feed into the appetite of approval and validation, or the appetite of surrender. And the one that we feed the most is the one that wins every day. And for years, every day I fed that appetite for validation by working a little bit harder, by setting my standard against what the world said was beautiful, what the world said was acceptable. And I lived my life according to that standard. And it was horrible, because what it did is it led to bondage. I was in bondage for years to this. I was in bondage to seeking the world's approval and their acceptance of me and the way that I looked on the outside. And I was in bondage to that. And it led to a lot of really difficult times. But what I know now, and through God's grace and through His redemption, is that He is here to set us free, to bring us freedom and surrender, but it only comes in surrender when we stop trying so hard to gain the approval of the next mom, the other woman, or women we work with, or even women in MOPS. When we stop trying so hard to win their approval and validation, man, God has something so much greater planned for our lives. So after I had resigned from the agency, because eventually I knew for my health, for my family's sake of me being so miserable, I needed to resign. I just couldn't, my body, I couldn't keep it the way that they needed it to be, so I resigned. And that led me to, because I was still hungry and feeding the appetite of approval daily by trying to just live according, I was like, man, I was known as the model, that's what the world sees me as. I gotta stay on the straight and narrow. I gotta look the part. And so I was fighting daily to try and get that image back, right? Because in my head, I was approved of by the world because I looked like a model at the time, and I was working as that. So I thought, okay, well, according to the world, I need to look like that again. And so I worked really, really, really hard to do that, which led to years of terrible binge eating, where I struggled, where I would starve myself during the week and binge on the weekends in a very, very, very unhealthy way. And it just led to all kinds of complications, to where I was so broken. I was so broken for so long because I didn't hold myself to God's standard. I didn't hold myself to His truth. I literally just was pursuing what I thought I needed to be according to what the world I thought was telling me that I needed to be. And I know we can all relate to this to some degree. But the world's solution will always leave us hungrier and thirstier and more empty than we've ever been when we're chasing that standard and that validation that only the world's telling us that we need. So I never felt like enough, and I was so desperate and I was so tired, even years after resigning from the agency. And so I knew I got to the point of desperation where I just knew I can't do this. I can't do this. And some of you may think, you may be in a time of your life where you feel like, I'm just never going to measure up. Like, I'm just never going to be like her. I'm just never going to have kids like her kids. And I'm never going to look like that. As hard as I try, I'm never going to look like that other girl, And I as much as I go to the gym or as much as I try and eat healthy, it's just, I'll never look like that. And we get to the point where it feels a little desperate, and it's hard, and we feel weak, and we don't feel like we have much to give. And so I came to the point where I just knew I've got to surrender it. Like, I have nowhere else to go, literally nowhere else to go. And so I said, okay, God, you've got to take this, and you've got to change it, because I have no power within myself. I've tried so hard for years to be what I thought I'm supposed to be, and that's not it. And so I surrender it. And the awesome thing about God is that when we surrender that weakness, and we surrender that appetite for and that hunger for approval that we'll never really truly get, right? When we surrender that He will reveal truths in our lives that will change our lives. It will change us, and He'll break those chains. Because again, you're either living in bondage to that approval that we want so desperately, or we're living in freedom that God gives through surrender, through laying it down at His feet and saying, I can't do this. I'm not enough. I'll never be enough. But you are enough. And I love John 8:32 that says, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free, not hitting a standard, not looking a certain way, none of that. But His truth is what's going to set us free. And what I know is this, and what I've learned is this, is that surrender is a daily thing. It's a daily action. It's not a one-time, like, okay, God, take it, and then He just kind of fulfills us and validates us. I mean, it is literally a daily thing where I have to say, God, you have to validate me today. I know who I am in you because I know the truth that you've put in your word, but I need you to validate me because I'm not enough. I'll never be enough. And so for me, it meant literally laying down my shortcomings and then fueling my life, not with the empty calories that I had been living off of for years, but by God's truth, which literally nourished my life. I mean, it literally changed me from the inside out, because I found fulfillment and satisfaction that I never found in anything that I had ever experienced before, because it satisfies us completely. It doesn't satisfy us for a moment. It satisfies us completely. So that was huge for me. And I know there were several verses that really, I clung to. When I had to make that decision to surrender, there were several verses that I wanted to share with you, because I know this idea of body image is not something that certain girls deal with. This idea of body image is something we've all dealt with at some point in time. At some point, we've looked in the mirror and thought, man, I wish I could look different. I wish I could lose weight, or I wish I could tone up, or I wish I was shorter or taller, or, it's something we have all dealt with. And so if body image is something that we are dealing with, I want you to know that there's verses that helped me to get to the point where I realized, man, God, this is what you want for my life. I don't have to struggle. I don't have to fight anymore to be something that is the world says I should be, that I can be everything you've created me to be. And so there's a few verses that open my eyes to God's truth. And the first one I want to share with you is in 1 Peter 3:3-5. And the premise is that beauty is found, that outward beauty that we all long for, right? That we all are like, oh, that would be great, It's found in surrender. It's found in surrender. It's not found anywhere else. And so the verses say this: your beauty should not come from outward adornments, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. That inner beauty, the gentle, quiet spirit. I love that he didn't say, like, if you're having a good day, if you're feeling self-confident, if you are having a good hair day, or if you've lost 10 pounds. Like, none of that. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for his truth that it's all about that inner, quiet spirit that he cherishes, that he finds such great worth in. And another verse that you guys are probably familiar with is in 1 Samuel 16:7, and it says this: but the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That's all he's concerned with. That's it. And for me, for too long, my only care, my only concern was what people saw. That's all that I was concerned about. I didn't spend a whole lot of time working on the inside, because the world was telling me it only matters what's on the outside. It only matters. All that matters is if you feel confident. Are you confident? And that's not what God wants at all. God says, I just look right at the heart. I don't even see what's on the outside, which is good for me most days. And then the final verse that I want to share with you is this: 2 Peter 1:5-8. And I just want to read this to you. Let me get to it. 2 Peter. I want to read this to you. And this one was brought to my attention a little bit more recently. And this one is for all of us, because I can tell you this, that there are two words as moms that we dread. I know it. We all do. Unproductive and ineffective, right? Like, the world is coming down, like crashing down if we are unproductive or ineffective. Like, please don't ever say those two words. They're horrible. And so the verses say this: for this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive, right? I stopped at that. I think I have, like, you should see my Bible. It's like notes everywhere, because I'm like, what? That's it? That's what I needed. Being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. And that's what I needed to know. That these are the things. Make every effort to add to your faith goodness, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, mutual affection, love. These are the things that make us productive and effective for Christ and his kingdom. And for years, I was eating these empty calories, being told that you just need to look good, you just need to look the part, you got to have it all together. And as moms, the world is telling us, you have to have well-behaved kids, you've got to have smart kids, you've got to have athletic kids, your house better look good, it better be tidy, you better be ready at all times to have people over. And like, there's expectations out the wazoo, and we will never measure up. So what I realized too is, as I was coming to the point where I had decided and made the choice to surrender to Christ, this for years, what I battled, this bondage that I had placed myself in of trying so hard to meet the world's standards, as I surrendered and began digesting the truth of his word, all of a sudden, my appetite changed. I wasn't craving so much that I could look exactly how I was supposed to look, or, the 5 pounds I thought I needed to lose wasn't so important anymore, because I was eating and digesting, and my appetite, I was hungry for God's truth, because I realized I was being filled and I was being satisfied, and this is what I was longing for. This was what my heart was longing for years, and I'd missed it. And so what I want to stress tonight is that we have to always remind ourselves that we've got to posture ourselves in a way of surrender, because we've got to know and understand that he's the only one who satisfies our soul and brings fulfillment and joy. He's it. That's it. There's nothing else. And I also want to, as moms, I do want to mention this too, that we choose what we are going to feed our kids. We choose whether we are going to feed our kids the empty calories, or if we're going to feed them that life-giving nutrition that comes straight out of God's word of surrender. And this is something that I have to remind myself all the time, because when I talk about feeding our kids empty calories, what I mean by that is that we can feed our kids this idea that acceptance is what is a high value for us. That if we're just accepted, if we just can succeed in something, if we can be accepted and succeed at school, if we can be great on the basketball court, if you can look great, if you can have it all together. And as moms, a lot of times we don't even mean to do this. I mean, I have a 4.5-year-old, and I'm like, Serena, stop, no, don't. Like, you gotta change, because that looks you look ridiculous. And I don't ever want her to fall into that trap of feeling like acceptance from the people in her world is the greatest value, because that is what I lived with for too long, and I was in bondage for too long. And so our job is to feed them life-giving nutrition from God's word, his truth. His truth is what will fulfill them. His truth is what will sustain them. And so we teach them goodness, and we teach them how to have faith. We teach them self-control. We teach them perseverance. We teach them love and mutual affection. We teach them how to serve people in their life. We teach them how to obey their parents. We teach them all of the things that God tells us is going to bring life, and that is where they will get to grow up and experience that life-giving nutrition, and that they won't even be hungry to eat those empty calories that all their friends are chasing after. All their friends are hungry for, the success, the stardom, the validation all around them. So I just want to encourage you in that. But here's what I want to do as I'm closing this out. We're all hungry. That's the honest truth, and that's something that I had to come to grips with is that I was so hungry. But I'm now hungry in a whole different way, because God has transformed my life, and He has shown me what real life looks like, and that the world stuff looks good. I mean, I got to travel, I got to meet cool people, I got to be up on a wall, and I got to go to competitions and things like that, and that was cool. But it was nothing. I'm telling you, it was nothing like the truth that has sustained me, that has fulfilled me straight out of God's word in a relationship with Him. There's nothing like it. And so, because we're hungry, we have to remember, we have to fuel ourselves on that life-giving nutrition of His word. We have to choose surrender daily. It's an action every day. It doesn't come easy. It's not natural, right? But the more that we feed ourselves on His truths, the more we learn to crave His truths. And after a while, the world's approval and acceptance, it's not as important. And I think it's so vital that our kids know that our kids see that. And so I wanted to leave you with this verse, Psalm 16:11, because as we choose to surrender and we lay that down, there's a verse that I love that sticks out to me that just reminds me of what I have in Christ and what is available to us in Christ when we surrender. And it's this. Psalm 16:11 says, "You make known to me the path of life. You fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand." You fill me with joy in your presence. You fill me with eternal pleasures. You make known to me the path of life. That's who our God is. That's what He wants to give us so bad. He wants to fill us. We're tired. We're tired. It's Thursday night. We have had a long week, and our kids wear us out. We're tired. And that's when we're real susceptible to wanting to just do what it takes to be approved and be validated by the world. But I want to encourage you that you go run straight to Jesus. Allow yourself to be in his truth and in his word enough to where that hunger for him alone grows, because it's going to satisfy your soul like nothing else. And so I actually brought cards. I didn't even tell you, Cheryl, I brought cards with this verse on it that I'd love to just send home with each of you, because I want to encourage you to memorize that verse. There's so much life there, and there's so much validation and nourishment in that verse. So as I wrap up, I'd love to pray for you as we go out. My prayer for this talk was that you could feel some sort of relief, because when I realized that I didn't have to live in bondage any longer to fighting for the world's validation, I experienced freedom for the first time. And that's what I want for each and every one of you, because I want us to be moms who are equipped with God's truth, not moms who are almost there, trying to reach goals that we're almost there, but we're working, we're almost there, we're getting there. I want us to be women who are strong, stand firm in his truth. And so I just want to pray over you tonight. God, thank you so much for this time, and thank you for the opportunity to just sit in a group of women who we are hungry, God. And we pray tonight that you would satisfy our souls, God, that we would choose you, that we would choose to surrender daily the things that we're struggling with, those things that we think will quench the appetite that we have, but just haven't yet, God, that you would fill that space. God, that we would light up when we hear your name. That when we choose to surrender, that we would be so filled with you and that life-giving nutrition of the truth of your word and who you say we are, that we wouldn't want to miss a moment with you. God, I pray that you would equip us, make us strong so that our kids can see what validation looks like, that our kids can see what satisfaction looks like, God, that acceptance from the world is full of empty calories, that will only fill us for a moment and leave us hungrier and hungrier as time goes on. God, that you would fill us, that you would work in our lives this week, and that we would choose surrender daily, that we would lay it all at your feet so that we can rest and that we can be fulfilled in your presence, God. We love you. I praise you for this time. I praise you for the women here, and just equip us today, God. We love you. In your name, amen. Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm going to pass out these cards, if that's okay. I'm going to just send them around.